So now we're going to build a couple of variations on this circuit that are going to have the same function as the pneumatic circuits that you built in the previous lab, Virtual Lab 2. What I'm going to do is to make a copy of this, select everything, and right-click, copy. I'm just going to scroll down a little ways and paste. All right. Now, before I get started, I want to make a couple of changes. First of all, with the Electro pneumatic circuit, the labels here, A plus, A minus, and A plus, A minus over here, if I create another valve with the same labels, it's going to respond when I am working with this circuit. So I'm going to have to change those to a different letter, and we'll just go along with the alphabet. I'm going to call the next actuator B. So we're going to change the label, just double click the valve, and this A plus, we're going to make it B plus, and oops, I should have changed the other one, and the A minus is going to become B minus. And then the corresponding solenoids in the electrical, we do the same thing. B plus for this one, and B minus for this one. All right, this circuit is going to act like the second or third circuit from the pneumatic one, where we're going to have one button instead of two buttons. We want to have one button. I'm going to press the button. The cylinder will extend, but it's going to hit a sensor, and the sensor is going to automatically cause it to retract. The sensor is going to take the place of this second push button. So I need to replace this cylinder with another version which has sensors. So add an object, go to Pneumatic, Actuators, Cylinders, and we're going to go to Double Acting Cylinder with Sensors. And we'll just put it right here where the other one was. So I have a cylinder with two sensors. These are representing magnetic reed switch sensors or some type of proximity sensor that senses when the rod is extended or retracted. And then we're going to use those to, or at least one of them in this case, to replace the manual push button. And so we're going to use the same labeling convention as the HAS200. We're going to call this actuator B, and we're going to call the sensors B0 and B1. So first I'm going to just double click this. Also I'm going to get rid of these extra little labels here, or this data that we don't really need to see. So I'm just going to uncheck show details. Okay, so for the labels, I double click this. I'm just going to change this label to B. So that's going to be actuator B. Now the two labels on the sensors don't have any functional properties. They're just text labels. What I am going to do though is if I double click the sensor, where it says symbol, I'm going to put B0 for the left sensor, and I get the label here, B0. And then same thing with this. I have to highlight the sensor first and then double click it, and it comes up with symbol. So this is going to be B1. And those two labels, I'm just going to delete them, or just make them blank text. We don't really need them at this point. So we've got a cylinder labeled uppercase B and two sensors labeled B0 and B1. Now we're not going to use both of those. We're just going to use this sensor, and we want to insert it into the electrical circuit in place of the manual push button. So I'm going to delete this. So we're going to open the menu, add an object, go up to Electric, Contacts, and we just need a contact normally open. And then I'm going to rotate that so I can put it right in where the switch was. So now I need to associate this contact with the B1 sensor. So I just double click it, and where it says symbol, I just put in the same label as we have on the sensor, B1, and that is associated. One other change I'm going to make is to put in some flow control valves to make this a little more interesting. So I'm going to delete these lines, go to add an object, back to pneumatic, under flow control, throttle one way. Put one in for this is going to control the extend speed. Make a copy of that, and we'll mirror it, and that'll control the retract speed. So when you run the simulation, make sure to click this play button, the run button. I wasn't doing that before, and sometimes it runs fine without that. I'm not sure why, but I know in this case when we have the sensors and the associated contacts, sometimes it doesn't run properly if you don't hit the play button or the run button. So I'm going to hit that first, and then also the soccer ball to start the full simulation. And at this point it should work properly. So I click the button, it extends, and then automatically retracts when it hits the end sensor. Okay, and I can also make this a little more interesting by changing the retract speed or the extend. I'm going to put this at 40%, so we'll have a quick extend and a slower retract. There's a quick extend and a slower retract. So that is the electro-pneumatic version of the second pneumatic circuit that you did in Virtual Lab 2. We have one more circuit to do, the third one, which is going to be like the last pneumatic circuit, where it should automatically extend and just keep it retracting, extending, retracting, extending. Now the third one, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy the circuit, and scroll down and paste it. And once again, I need to change these labels because we already have sensors and solenoids labeled with the B designation. So this is going to be C. I'm going to make this actuator C. So let's start with the label first, uppercase C. And then each of these sensors, you double click and change the symbol. This is going to be C0. And this is going to be C1. We also have to change the valve labels. Double click the valve, uppercase C plus for the extend, and uppercase C minus for the retract. And make sure it goes into the retract position before you say OK. So that'll be its default position. And now we have to label the electric actuators with the same label. So everything has to match. So C plus for the solenoid to extend it, and C minus for the solenoid to retract. And then this sensor also has to be labeled C. So the change, what we're going to do now is make this a system that automatically extends and then immediately retracts automatically, and it just keeps going back and forth. So to make it a little more interesting, I'm going to change the flow control on the extend to something slower, like 30%. So it should do a slow extend and a quick retract. So all I have to do is replace this manual push button with a set of contacts that can be associated with the C0 sensor. So I right click, copy, paste, and then I just have to double click it and give it the symbol of C0. Just hit the soccer ball. Now what you should see is it's just going to keep extending and retracting. You notice you have a slow extend because of the flow restriction and a fast retract. Now what I'd like to do is make it so I can actually have some control over it, so that I can start and stop, just like the pneumatic version. So I'm going to stop the simulation, and I just need to put in a switch here. So if I right click, add an object, go to electric, contacts, and down here a switch, normally open. Connect that up to power and to the circuit, and then I'm going to call this, I'm going to label this main control. So I'm just going to grab one of these text labels, copy it, start the simulation. I hit the main control switch and it starts doing extend and retract. So I hope you enjoyed the demonstration. Good luck with the lab, and I will see you when you're back on campus.